I'm not going to start with hype or a list of numbers because what matters most is whether this TV actually lives up to the promises you see online, and whether it feels like a good fit for the way you watch. If you're on the fence about spending a big chunk of money on a 75-inch screen, the link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a few weeks living with a 75-inch Neo QLED in a mixed-use household: kids, a home office, a gaming rig, and a nightly movie ritual, so I can tell you what felt genuine and what felt more like marketing fluff. First, let's talk about the hesitation most people feel. A screen this large can dominate a room, and the price tag can make you wonder if you're really getting a step up or just paying for a brand name. The big question is, does the Neo QLED technology actually translate into a noticeable difference in everyday viewing, or is it something you only notice on a controlled test chart? In my experience, the difference shows up in 3 real-world scenarios: bright daytime TV, fast-moving game action, and the occasional 4K movie night. When I set the TV up in a living room that gets a lot of natural light, the Quantum Mini LED backlight really mattered. The dimming zones are fine-grained enough that the picture stays punchy without blooming around bright windows. I was watching a sports broadcast with the sun streaming through the blinds, and the whites stayed crisp while the darker parts of the field didn't turn into a gray mush. For a family that watches live events during the day, that level of brightness and contrast can be a deal-breaker. If your room is a dark home theater, you might not need that much peak brightness, but the TV still holds its own thanks to the color volume that Samsung touts. The next practical test was gaming. I hooked up a next-gen console and cranked the picture mode to the Game Optimizer preset. The NQ4 AI processor does a decent job of upscaling lower-resolution content, but the real win is the low input lag and the way motion handling stays smooth during fast shooters. I didn't notice any stutter when I turned on motion acceleration, and the color stayed vivid without oversaturation. For anyone who plays competitively, the combination of a responsive panel and the AI-enhanced upscaling means you get a clearer image even when the console is rendering at 1080p. If you're a casual gamer who mostly watches games on stream, you probably won't notice the difference as much, but it's a nice bonus that doesn't hurt. Now, let's consider the everyday, just watching Netflix scenario. The 100% color volume with Quantum Dot ensures that HDR content looks as intended: deep blacks, bright highlights, and a rainbow of colors that don't look washed out. I tried a few Netflix originals shot in HDR, and the skin tone stayed natural while the background foliage popped. The Color Booster Pro feature, which pushes saturation a bit when you're watching non-HDR material, can be pleasant for older shows that were originally mastered for standard dynamic range, but it's subtle enough that you can turn it off if you prefer a more faithful rendition. The key point is that the TV doesn't require you to constantly tweak settings. The AI processor does a respectable amount of work on its own. One area where the TV feels less polished is the built-in Alexa integration. Voice commands work fine for basic tasks: turning the TV on and off, adjusting volume, launching popular apps, but more complex requests like find a comedy from the 90s often fall back to a generic search list. If you were hoping for a seamless smart home hub that replaces a dedicated Echo device, you might be disappointed. That said, the Tizen platform is fairly snappy, and the app selection covers the big players: Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, Amazon Prime. If you already own a separate voice assistant, you can treat this as just another display rather than the centerpiece of your smart home ecosystem. Let's talk about the practical trade-offs that aren't on the spec sheet. The TV is large, and at 75 inches it demands a solid wall mount or a sturdy TV stand. I used a wall mount rated for at least 100 kilograms, and the installation was straightforward, but the weight of the unit means you need to be confident in your mounting hardware. Also, the power consumption is higher than a typical 60-inch LED set, so if you're watching for many hours a day, the electricity bill will reflect that. It's not a deal-breaker for most people, but it's something to factor into the total cost of ownership. Who should consider buying this model? If you have a spacious living room or a dedicated media room and you watch a lot of HDR content, sports, movies, high-quality streaming, this TV delivers on the promises of brighter highlights and richer colors. Gamers who value low lag and good motion handling will also appreciate the combination of mini LED backlighting and the AI upscaler. Families with kids who like to watch cartoons or animated